And that was the opinion of Yitzchak, which we said is not the halacha, which we say that you could go ahead and you could technically cover an egg that was born on Shabbat with a plate, because you're not moving the egg, you're just covering the egg. You're not putting the plate underneath the egg. But if you put the plate underneath the egg, you are now nullifying the plate from use. You're taking a movable item, and you're making it immovable. So that you can't do. You can't put the plate underneath the egg, but you could go ahead and put the plate on top of the egg. That's the opinion, the halachic opinion. But Rabbi Yitzchak says you cannot even put the plate on top of the egg because you cannot move a movable item for a non-movable item. The Gemara challenged that from a story. The Gemara challenged that, and the Gemara said, and the Gemara came up with a story, with a case of a beehive, where you want to go ahead and protect the beehive from the rain during the rainy season, during the winter. And the Gemara said the beehive is there for the bees. The bees are muksa, so the beehive is muksa. And yet you could go ahead and put a mat, spread a mat on the beehive to protect the beehive from the rain. So the Gemara says, we see from there, that's a question of Rabbi Yitzchak, that you're moving a mat, which is a movable item, for the purpose of a non-movable item, which is the beehive, which is mukseh. So the Gemara says the beehive is talking about a case where the beehive has even though the winter generally there's not so much, in the winter there's not so much honey around, but they leave 2 cakes of honey in the winter for the bees to eat from, and the Gemara then shoots back, even if the bees to eat from, but if it's food for the bees, so then it should also be mukseh, the honey. And the Gemara says, because you thought it's not the case, that it's not mukseh, is because you had in mind before Shabbat to eat those cakes. And the Gemara said that even though you had in mind to eat those cakes, but you have to still be very careful that you don't come to capture any of the bees when you press, when you don't, as long as you don't capture the bees, when you place the mat on the beehive, as long as you don't have intention. The language of the Gemara was, you didn't intend to catch the bees. So on that, the Gemara wanted to know who is that author of this braita that says, as long as you don't intend to catch the bees. So the Gemara says that sounds like Rav Shimon, right? Because we have a machloket. If you do an act on Shabbat, and you might doing the act of labor, you might be doing the act, but you're not intending to do the act, and it's not definite that you're doing the act. That's the case of the moving of the bed, right? If you move the bed on Shabbat, and it's outside in the field, and maybe it might make a groove, it might not make a groove. So if Shimon says, as long as it's not, the way we understand, as long as you're not definitely going to make a groove, it's not a psik reisha, you can go ahead and you can move that bed on Shabbat. You're not intending to make the groove, and it's not definite that you're going to make a groove. But Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot do that. Yehuda says you cannot move the bed on Shabbat where there's a possibility that you're going to be doing an act of making a groove, of an act of labor on Shabbat. For that possibility, Yehuda says it is forbidden. So the Gemara says, if the author is Reb Shimon, so Reb Shimon, the Gemara says, does not hold of that this would be mukseh, that these cakes would be mukseh, that you have to have had in mind before Shabbat to eat these cakes. Morning, Simon, because if Shimon holds that would not be the mukseh that would be forbidden on Shabbat. The fact, because if you have cakes that can be used for human beings, honey cakes that can be used for humans, used for bees, Even if you didn't, even if you had them, they were there for the purpose of bees, but it's usable enough for human beings that's not called muksa. That's not called a level of muksa according to Rabbi Shimon. He would not agree with that's called muksa. We'll see. We'll have to identify the Gemara which cases of Shimon would agree would be muksa, but that's not a level of muksa that doesn't reach the bar of muksa when in eighthly these cakes are fit to be eaten, they're fit to be used. The fact that they were placed to be used for the bees, that's not enough to be separate. It's enough separated from you that you cannot be able to use it on Shabbat. And that the fact that you told me that the case of this braita is when you had a mind to eat the cakes on Shabbat before Shabbat, and want to eat the cakes. Seemingly, that's not in sync with Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon would not require you to have a mind before Shabbat to eat the cakes. It's not muksa without having that mindset. It's not muksa. You don't need to have a mind before Shabbat to eat those cakes. The only one. So rather you have to say, who's the author of the braita? Rabbi Huda. That he would say that would be muksa, the cakes. If you designated the cakes, chodesh tov. If you dedicated the cakes for the bees, it would be muksa, unless you had in mind before Shabbat that you want to eat those cakes. So if that's the case, Rabbi Yehuda, we're on 43b1 in the right side, in the middle paragraph. Mimani, who was the author of the braita of the beehive? Rabbi Shimon, if it's Rabbi Shimon, let's say muksa. He doesn't hold that's a category of muksa, and therefore, why do you have to think about it before Shabbat to eat those cakes? Rabbi Yehuda. So rather, you're going to say, who was the author, Rabbi Yehuda? Because he does hold that would reach the bar of muksa, the cakes, if it was designated for the bees. So if that's the case, kilo mitchave may have even if he doesn't have intention to, but the Braita says. Listen, if you had the Braita says, as long as you could place that mat, right, Simon, on that beehive, as long as you don't intend to catch the bees. So the Gemara shoots back, so kilo mitchavein may have What does it make a difference if I don't have a mind to catch the bees? Rabbi Yehuda holds, even if you don't intend to catch, to do a malacha, if it has a chance, if you might be doing a malacha, if the end result of your action is that maybe you are doing an act of labor on Shabbat, it doesn't make a difference that you're not having a mind, but the possibility of you doing an act of labor is enough to forbade for the rabbis to forbade it. Maybe it wouldn't be a Torah prohibition because you don't have intent to do an act of work, but the fact that there might be an act of work being done is at least according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says it's a rabbinic prohibition. So how could we allow you to spread the net just as long as you don't intend to catch the bee? Maybe you're going to be catching the bees. So the Gemara says, L'olam Rabbi Yehuda. Really, the author is Rabbi Yehuda, who is machmir, who was more strict regarding mukseh. And therefore, because he holds that if you have the cakes that you set aside to be used for the bees, even though they're fit for human consumption, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it would be mukseh, it would be forbidden for you to move those cakes on Shabbat, unless you had a mind before Shabbat that I plan on using those cakes, those honey cakes to eat. L'olam Rabbi Yehuda. So then we had the question, if it's Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore that's why you had to have a mind before Shabbat. So how are you allowed to spread the net just because I'm not intending to catch the bee? You're doing an act of spreading a net which might catch a bee. One of the third melachot on Shabbat is what? Is capturing. You can't, right, Adam? We can't go hunting on Shabbat. Can't capture on Shabbat. So why does it allow you to spread that net when you might catch a bee? According to Rabbi Yehuda, there should be a problem. What does it mean you don't intend to capture? It doesn't mean that you just don't intend to capture and it has the ability to capture it, but you're just not intending to capture it. Rather, you make it in a way, you place the mat over the beehive in a way that, good morning, Levi, that it cannot capture. You leave enough space for the bees to go out. So that's what it means. You don't have a mind to capture means that you place it, you make the net, not the net, the mat in a way that it will not have the ability to capture. What does it mean? What does it mean that you're not intending to capture? It means that don't make the mat like a net. The lishbuk lehuravcha. You have to leave a nice space for the bees to exit. In order that the bees will not be captured as a result of the spreading of the mat on top of the bees. Okay. What would you say?
City that surrounded with walls and
right, very good. So that's a good point. What Simon is saying. Why we talk about wanting Mark, wanting Ezra. We talk about a net. Right. The same word. Right. Right. So maybe the idea is, like you said, a mitzudah is usually referred to a stronghold, right? A stronger fortress or something. Maybe, but because maybe it's also the same. Maybe it's connected to the word seidah, captured. Good morning, because anything that's inside there is captured. Is under say the people that are inside are closed. They're protected, and that's what when you put on a net. When you net that's the same idea. You're protecting the contents that you're spreading the net for. So maybe it's from the same idea. We are on 43B1 on the right end of the page on the right side. Mark, you see we made some movement, but we turned the page. No. Maybe the movement is when you slow us down. That is the movement. How do you like that? How do you define movement? Is movement turning a page, or movement had better understanding of the Gemara? That's the movement. Join the movement. Okay, Moni Akiva. So the Gemara says that you left the net in a way that around the bees, you left the mat that the bees are going to come out or have the ability to come out. That's not called trapping. But if you did not leave a space, it would be a problem, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now, again, even Rabbi Shimon, that would allow you to put the mat on top of the beehive. That's only when it's not definite that you're going to catch a bee. He says you could. It's a possibility you might catch a bee. It's not a definite. But if it be definite, he would also agree you can't spread a mat on a beehive when you're definitely going to catch the bee. It's only when you're not when it's not a secret, when it's not definite, and you have two things working for you. It's not definite, and you're not intending to do it. So then that's where Rabbi Shimon would say it's allowed. Just like when you drag the bed in the field, I want to get the bed from point A to point B. I'm not intending to make a groove in the ground, and it's not definite that I'm going to make a groove in the ground. The action of making a groove would be part of the work called charisha, plowing, softening up the ground. So I'm not intending, and it's not definite. So now the Gemara says, that's what the Gemara says, the lishbik lahu, and you leave space, that it won't be automatically captured. Okay. Until now, the Gemara understood that the words of Chama during what we said, that you're allowed to go ahead and spread the mat on the beehive by the sun. During the sun time, we want to protect it from the heat of the sun, and during the rainy time from the rain. So the Gemara understood that that we're talking about the sun refers to the summer, and the rain refers to the winter. And to that, the Gemara had a question: where is the Gemara was thinking there's no real honey in the winter out on the beehive. And if there's no real honey on the winter in the beehive, so therefore the only thing you got there is bees, and the beehive is there for the bees, and therefore the beehive should be mukseh. That was the Gemara's issue, and the Gemara came up by saying that they always leave 2 cakes in the winter. So therefore there is food, there is non-muksa items there, namely the cakes, the 2 cakes that are left during the winter. That's what the Gemara said. And now the Gemara says, you know what? We can interpret the Braita differently. We could, because the Gemara never had a problem during the summer. The summer, there's a lot of cakes, there's a lot of honey on the beehive in the summer. The Gemara had no problem covering the beehive, because the beehive is during the summertime, because the beehive is serving the cakes. But you have cakes there of honey. Honey we eat. It's not mukseh. Therefore, I'm not covering a mukseh item by covering the beehive. But now the Gemara says, Rav Ashi wants to say that even though it says rain, because of the rain, you could be in the summer and it's raining. So we're not talking about, when we say in the sun, because of the sun, you could spread the mat, and the rain in the rain, you could spread it for the rain. It doesn't say during the rainy season. It says the rain. So the rain is referring to in the summer, and it's right in the summer when you have the cakes of honey, which now makes it that it's not a muksa place, because it's not just bees there, there's cakes of honey there. That's when you could spread the mat. Not necessarily could you spread it in the winter time. In winter, there's other issues. There's not the regular honey there in the winter. And even if there is honey there, you leave 2 cakes of honey for the bees to keep them nourished throughout the winter. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's food. Bee food is mukseh, according to Rabbi Yehuda, because it's serving the bees, it's not serving human beings. So therefore, that's what the Gemara says. Rav Ashi Amar, Mitani biyamot hachama, yamot hagshamim. It doesn't say in the days of the sun, in the days of the rains, right? The days of the sun. When are the days of the sun? That's the summertime. The days of the rain, that's the common. When you refer to the winter, that's the rainy season. Just on this. What do we say? We say, what does it say? It says, V'chama v'bnei hachama. The sun because of the sun. V'kshamim v'bnei kshamim. The rain because of the rain. Therefore, we're referring to. So what are we referring to? I said before, referring to this. Everything is the summer. The Gemara says no. Right? I want to correct myself. The Gemara says we're talking about Biyomei Nisan and Biyomei Tishrei. We're referring to those 2 months of the year. Today, how do you like that? Biyomei Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. This month, this time of the year, and in Tishrei, the month of the Sukkah month. We all know it rains then. Summer, you can have rain, you can have sun, right? It's unpredictable. Dika Chama, there's sun. Ika Geshamim, there's rain. Vika Dvash, and there's honey. Because that part of the year, it's not yet the heavy winter yet in Tishrei. And Nisan is already, the winter is already hopefully behind us in a certain sense. And therefore, there is those days, there is honey there as well in the beehive. And therefore, you could go ahead and cover the beehive during Tishrei, during Nisan, and I would think also, obviously, the rest of the summer where there's bees, with there's honey there as well, and therefore, but in the winter time, when there's no honey standing for human consumption, so perhaps the brisa would not permit moving the mat because maybe you could explain the brisa according it could even fit according to Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion. Excuse me, Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion that says that you cannot move a non-muksa item for the purpose of a muksa item. And in the winter, the beehive, which doesn't have regular honey for human consumption, it's only honey for bee consumption. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it would that the Brisa would be saying you would not have an allowance to cover because you're taking a movable item, the mat, covering a non-movable item because the beehive, which is serving only the bees in the winter, is muksa. But we said the halacha is not like that, by the way. You could cover that egg that was born on Shabbat because even though you're taking a carved plate that's not muksa and you're moving it for the purpose of a muksa item. I'm not making muksa, exactly. I'm not putting it under the egg. I'm not making the plate muksa, it's covering. Just want to say when I'm on this topic, rainy season, sunny season, the Kol Yaakov Siddur, which is a very, I think, one of the main siddurim for the Sephardi community, sometimes they would, when it comes to Baruch Aleinu or Baruchenu, which sometimes it says in the winter and it says in the summer. Winter, you say Baruch Aleinu, and the summer, now we're saying Baruch Aleinu, and the summer, we say Baruchenu. But that's not exactly, right, some do give, some Siddurim do not give. Well, we'll get the Siddur. I'm not coming to talk bad about the Kol Yaakov Siddur, everybody. I have to be careful, Rabbi. That would be Lashon Hara. That would be negative talk, even though. Right. But I want to show you. I want to show you Yaakov Siddur. Kol Yaakov Siddur. Kol Yaakov Siddur. Let's take a look. I'm going to be expecting Mark to take care of it for me. You heard what I just said, Mark? Yes, and I expect it. No playing around. In the Kol Yaakov Siddur, it says, B'kayitz, in the summer, Baruchenu. Winter, Baruch Aleinu. So Mark is going to be calling up the people who are involved in the Siddur. You don't mind? Take a look. I want you to see black and white. Let me get another one. Now I got to update it, Kol Yaakov Siddur. So now that's the old Kol Yaakov Siddur. This is the new Kol Yaakov Siddur. So let's take a look. The new Kol Yaakov Siddur in honor of Bert and Shirley Dweck in their memory. So what does it say? So it meaning to say the community understands that people know the reason for that is they are under the impression that everybody knows what they mean when they say summer and what they mean when they say winter. But I personally feel that it needs more. So the other Siddurim in the Sephardi community, they will like the Magen Avraham. Here's another call. The Magen Avraham Siddur. So they put in summer from the first day of Chol Hamoed Pesach. So they used the word summer. They didn't want to move away from that word. Somehow that was the way, right? Still the theme, right? And winter from Arvid of December 4th. But I want the Kol Yaakov Siddur to also say that. So that's one of my. No. I want Kol Yaakov Sfard.
Footnotes. It's saying correct that a guy that doesn't know, like, also you change in the winter, you change Morita Gav and you don't, it's from Morita Tal, and you don't change the Bari Chalim. You wait. One you change on Hol Moed,
One Shmini Atzeret, Shmini Atzeret,
and the other one,
Geshem,
and the other one you don't change.
right,
And a lot of people change.
right.
They don't know.
They don't know. Right,
November, I have to change.
right. And winter,
Winter.
in America, when's winter? November is winter, not December 4th or whatever it is.
And there's many times I send that to my group. I have a group of guys that are Rosh Chodesh, don't forget that I said today. They pray at home, so tell them. And I say today change. Barei Chaleinu. They say, oh, I changed already 3 weeks ago.
Right. So if they were in Israel, maybe because Israel they changed earlier. They changed earlier in Israel for Baruch Aleinu. But so, if they're concerned about that, then they should write it. These are Siddurim that are made here, not for Israel. So, and even in Israel, you got to put the date, the date in Cheshvan that they switch. So that's Mark. I hope you don't mind me giving you homework. I would guarantee people that are connected with the Siddur that maybe they would what say? You know them too. So I'm giving you both the job. How do you like that? It says Shlomo HaMelech says Tovim Hashnayim min Echad. Two are better than one. So Ezra, you and Mark, you have a joint project here. Okay? But I want to tell you, first, before you go in, you tell them that. First you say, by the way, the Kol Yaakov Seder is beautiful. Before you give words, always got to first open up with something very positive. A lot of times, then give them then you give them recommendations, suggestions. You know what I'm saying? But if people just call up and say what they find wrong with the thing, or not wrong, what could be improved, I think that's not, what I'm saying? I'm just giving you a little bit of rabbinic advice. Always give a nice word. They do, and a lot of people want that Kol Yaakov Siddur. You know what I mean? People have that choice of Siddur. So if you want the Magen Avraham, so whatever you enjoy, whatever you feel is better. It's online. It's a Kol Yaakov online. Kol Yaakov Siddur, that's like Simon said. People that want, I want the Kol Yaakov Siddur. But we want to make it a little. We want to make it a little clearer for people. People shouldn't make that mistake. Okay. You know what? Interesting. I'm going to apply to the Kol Yaakov something from the Gemara.
And the online, the one that I'm saying.
So yeah. Good morning, Murray. It seems like it's the same thing. In the Mishnah, the rabbis in the Mishnah understood what they were saying, but then you have the Gemara, and the Gemara question: What does the Mishnah mean? Does it mean this? Or does it mean that? They knew what they meant, but as the generations went down, the new generation didn't know what it meant. It's the same thing. The Kol Yaakov Siddur, maybe originally everyone understood when you said winter, what do you mean by winter, and summer, what do you mean by summer? But as the
This is the only thing we follow the solar calendar.
Because I presume the solar calendar is connected with the rain, and the lunar calendar it's not as that's what I would think. Right. But most probably that's what I would think. Okay, we could look more into it. What they say.
You should do it for Morita Tal.
Oh, so the answer to that is the following. Very good. The Gemara in Ta'anit says, Morita Tal and Mashiv Ruach Morita Geshem, we're not asking for rain. Meaning when we say on Shmini Atzeret, on Sukkot, on the 8th day of Sukkot, we're going to say Geshem. Yeah. When we're talking about Hashem's praise. It's not a request. We only start asking for rain in December 4th, or whatever, 5th, whatever the date is. Mashiv Ruach HaMoreh Geshem is a praise of Hashem. The first 3 brachot in the Amidah, we're in the praise zone. Meaning, and what's the explanation? And it's an interesting thing. We just spoke about giving a compliment before you go ahead and you give a criticism, if that's the right word. Before you go ahead and ask for something, you first praise Hashem. Recognize what. So before we ask for rain,
why is the time aligned and praising aligned with the sun? I get you saying I'm praising. I agree. First, praise and then request. Okay, good. But it should align with my request.
Right. So maybe, because very good. So in general, every day, that's exactly how the Amidah works every day. The first three blessings of the Amidah is praising God. Kela Kadosh, he's holy. Magen Avram, and we talk about Shield of Avraham. We talk about his Gomel Chasadim Tovim. He does so many kindnesses to us. And we talk about Mechayim Meitim. He's the one who gives, brings the resurrection of the dead. We talk about it. And after we do that, then we go into then we have 13 blessings of requests. Give us knowledge, refuah, health, and so on and so forth, parnasah. Then the last three are focused on thank yous. Those are thank you. That's the way you do it. But the rabbis, for some reason, Mark saying they felt we're not going to just go from we're not going to make the switch simultaneously from why did they make that switch? Why is it different? Why did they?
Time different than my request should be a lot. I think I praise you. Amazing what you're doing.
Good. So we have to look up. So because I'm not
going to say praise you for what you're doing, and then I'm going to request something different than what you're doing.
No, it's not that I'm requesting something different. Meaning, not asking for rain. It's not requesting something different, right? Meaning, if good morning, if on Shmini Atzeret we go ahead and we say Mashiv Ruach HaMoreh, we switch. What we're switching is Mashiv Ruach HaMoreh Geshem.
Right.
Borchenu is that we don't ask for rain. We're not, it's not that we just don't ask for rain in Borchenu. The difference in Borchenu and Baruch Aleinu is one different. The meat and the potato difference is asking for rain or not asking for rain. So but I'm praising. I'm praising that God is the one who brings rain when rain needs to be brought. It's not a contradiction. I could say God is the one who brings the rain.
I could say that all year if that's the case.
Right, but I'm not looking to set up in the summertime or past Pesach. I'm not getting ready to ask. I'm not preparing to get ready to ask for rain because I'm not going to be asking rain until way later. But when and also remember in Israel, maybe I could also explain it, Mark. Really, maybe this is the answer to your question. Really, in Israel, when do they already make the switch? Let's say I think it's Zayin Cheshvan. Let's look at the date, like the 7th of Cheshvan. They're already asking for rain. They already say if you go to Israel, the 7th of Cheshvan, they're saying Baruch Aleinu. I think it's the 7th day of Cheshvan. Really, they should already make the switch of Shmini Atzeret. In Israel, they should make the switch on Shmini Atzeret. But why don't they make the switch on Shmini Atzeret? Because people have to travel back home. If you have to travel back home and you live on the other end of Israel, so the reason we don't want to rain because it's going to make it difficult for you traveling. So therefore, why is that date Zayin Cheshvan? Where is that date in Israel? That date in Israel is only to give the people those 2 weeks trying to come back home. That's why we're giving them that's that date. It's not connected to anything. So therefore, that's maybe it is the right time to talk about rain because you're already in the time that you do need the rain. But we're not going to ask for the rain because of a technicality because we don't want the people to get hurt with the rain traveling. Maybe that answers your question, Mark. And therefore, but us people out of the land of Israel who don't need the rain the way they need it in Israel, so the rabbi said we start asking for rain later, about a month, whatever.
I know it's
it's like 60. It's a certain amount of days after a certain. Obviously that's the date we need the rain. That we outside of Israel, Bavel, Babylon, whatever. That's the date that they needed the rain. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're here every day, 6:45 to 7:25. And then we have the 7:30 minyan. You got breakfast afterwards. And Chodesh Tov, everybody. You know, it says that Nisan they were redeemed, and Nisan is a very opportune time to be redeemed again. It's the best time of the year, best time. It's always time, but that's the best time, the month of Nisan. We all right, exactly.
I told you.